Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to what is going to be the final Ask Huda show before Eid time, inshallah ta'ala. So it's the last Ask Huda show of Ramadan. I am your host, Salim Chaghtai, and with me I have our Sheikh, Dr. Hatem al-Hajj, who is the Dean of the Sharia Academy of America. Please don't forget, this is your show, where we answer your questions about any aspect of Islam. So you can call us on 00202 38555 248 and 249, or you can email us at ask@huda.tv. Please remember that if you do call and get through, then please keep your volume down, because then this will lead to the questions being answered very quickly, and you will help your brothers and sisters who are waiting on the line as well. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Hatem, how are you?
Good, alhamdulillah, wa alaikum salam.
We're ending the last few days of Ramadan, so it's a very strange feeling. But
alhamdulillah, may I accept our deeds and deeds of all Muslims.
Ameen, ameen, jazakallah khairan. So Sheikh, without further ado, we'll get straight into the questions which have been outstanding so far. Sister Elisa from Canada, she cited some verses from the Quran which talk about slavery. And she mentioned Surah 23, which is verses 5 to 7, and Surah 70, verse 59. She asked, does Islam accept and condone it? What are its conditions? And also, she asked a very direct question, can a man have intimate relations with all his female concubines, even if he has 4 wives?
Alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala Rasulullah. Well, as for slavery is a human phenomenon that certainly preceded Islam by many centuries, if not thousands of years. So Islam helped the slaves obtain freedom via multiple means, including the kafarat, which is expiation. You have the kafara of zihar, when a man says to his wife, "You're like my mother, or the back of my mother to me." Like the kafara of erroneous killing, like the kafara of futile oaths, that's also by freeing a slave, or one of the options. So Islam did install multiple measures to help free the slaves. More importantly, it empowered the slaves. It is not only a matter that is initiated or instigated by the master, it could also be initiated by the slave who seeks freedom. You have to understand that if you free all the slaves spontaneously at one time, this can result in multiple problems, social and economic problems for the entire society.
Because you've got a different class being
anarchy, or who's going to provide for them also? Exactly. Because if you free them, you're not going to force the masters to give each slave, enough capital to start his life. So who's going to provide for them? You're going to have like unemployment, soaring unemployment in the society, and you're going to have multiple other social and economic issues. But if you have a gradual system whereby the slaves that are ready to be freed, that are seeking freedom, get their freedom through al-mukataba, which is getting contracted with their masters, a system that Islam prescribed. And when a slave asks the master for a contract to buy himself, it is incumbent, as the Quran tells us, upon all of us, upon the society, as well as the master, to help that slave get his freedom. So he gets money from the House of Treasury, he gets money from the zakat, and so on and so forth. So forth, enable him to buy himself. So that's one thing. The other thing also is, whenever you have a river that is flowing and you want to dry it out, you have to look at increasing the branches and decreasing the tributaries. So the tributaries that fed into the river slavery before Islam were multiple. Islam limited all of that and restricted it only to captives of war. And if you have to understand one thing, that captives of war used to be a burden on the victorious army. Resources were very scarce, and people did not really have that much to feed their own armies, let alone feeding the army of the enemies. So they used to kill them, and that did not happen once or twice in the history. It happened repeatedly in the history.
And also Islam never condoned, because when we think of slavery, we think of shackle slavery, people tied up in, as we think of what happened in Africa, when the Westerners came to Africa and shackled people up and threw them on boats, and whoever lived, and whoever didn't, then that was it, then khalas, they were just treated as dirt and junk, and this is very different in Islam. But inshallah, we'll carry on with that discussion inshallah a bit later. We have Sister Maryam on the line from the United Kingdom. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, sister, please go forth with your question.
I just wanted to wish everybody Ramadan Mubarak, and I wanted to say Jazakallah khairum ala the Huda TV, and we benefit from it very much here in the UK.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. Yes, I'm from the UK as well, so I know what it feels like not having having on the mainstream satellite channel. So yes, inshallah, may Allah make it available very soon within all of Europe. Yes, you're right.
Thank you very much. My question is about Zakat al-Fitr.
Zakat al-Fitr, yeah.
Hello?
Yes, sister, go ahead. Zakat al-Fitr, yeah.
I was just wondering, does the zakat before Eid, does it have to reach the families of the poor, or can you just donate it to a charity and then they will obviously pass the zakat maybe later than Eid or later? Does it have to reach the family?
Right, okay, so you're asking that when you give the Zakat al-Fitr, whether it's by money or whether it's by the actual foodstuffs,
yes,
does it have to, in either case, does it have to reach the family by Eid time, or does it have to, or can it reach them later?
Yes, that's
okay.
my question.
Okay,
yes.
Jazakallah khair. I think we can answer that. That'd be great to answer straight away since it's so close to Eid time. So Sheikh, what is the ruling? I mean, does Zakat al-Fitr have to reach its end destination by Eid time? So should it be given that far in advance?
It would be preferable certainly to give it far in advance, because you enable the organizations, the charitable organizations, to get the zakat to the deserving recipients on time. But again, if you give it to the organization right before Eid, you would have done your part, because the organization would then act as an agent for the poor. The organization, in fact, is a dual agent, if that's a good thing. But
not double agent. That's very good. Very good choice of words.
Yeah. So it's an agent of the recipient and an agent of the donor at the same time. So you would have given the money to the agent of the recipient, thereby you would have cleared yourself of the responsibility. But if you want to be proactive and send it earlier so that you do not cause logistical difficulties to those organizations, that is certainly recommended.
But if they pay their zakat al-Fitr before the Eid Salah, as the hadith states, then alhamdulillah they've absolved themselves of any responsibility, and it's not a problem if that food or that aid or whatever gets to the recipients after Eid. That's not really a problem, is that right?
From a legal perspective, yes, but from a perspective of preference, then I would certainly recommend for them to do it earlier, so that you don't cause difficulties for those organizations, because it's very hard for them to anticipate how much they'll get.
Sure, and can they give it right now? I mean, when is the earliest time you can give Zakat al-Fitr? Can it be given now?
Well, it is controversial, but I think that now it's within 2 days, then it is, according to the majority, permissible to give now.
MashaAllah, barakallahu feekum, Shaykh. To just get back to the issue of slavery, what is the ruling regarding a man having intimate relations with his female slaves? Well, how does Islam govern this? Obviously, it can't be a free-for-all. There must be certain rules governing this. So can you elucidate some of this, inshallah?
Yeah, and I will have to go back to the issue of slavery maybe a couple of times, because it's an issue that you either answer completely or you don't answer at all.
It's true. That is very true. Because you sometimes need to get the whole picture and the context. Otherwise, it can be very misleading. I appreciate that, yes.
So the issue of the tributaries that we were talking about, that Islam, increased the limited the tributaries, increased the branches. There is another issue also. So, the acquisition of the slaves has to be legitimate. You can't kidnap people and call them your slaves. The acquisition of slaves has to be also legitimate, and this was allowed in the case of the captives of war. In fact, it was a way to give them life, to give them life and honorable life. And thereafter, if you look at the time of the successors, the followers of the Sahaba, the second generation, it used to be called the Asr al-Mawali. It's the era of the freed slaves. It was called the era of the freed slaves because they were the masters all over the place. In fact, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, who is the known Khalifa, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan ibn al-Hakam, was asking az-Zuhri, which was one of the greatest scholars of the Tabi'een, the followers of the Sahaba, about his trip to Mecca. He said to him, whom did you leave to be the master in Mecca? He said, Ata ibn Abi Rabah. And he said to him, is he from the Arabs or the freed slaves? He said, for the freed slaves. And then he asked him, what about Yemen? And what about Egypt? And what about Iraq? And what about Al Jazeera, Al Basra? And every time he would ask him about a place, he would tell him, is the master from the Arabs or the freed slaves? So he would say, from the freed slaves, not from the Arabs. Until he asked him about the Kufa, and he said Ibrahim al-Nakhai. And he said, is he from, and he mentioned, Tawus, and he mentioned a few,
these are famous tabi'een,
few celebrities that were from the freed slaves, until he went to reach the Kufa, and he said to them, from the Arabs or the freed slaves? He said, from the Arabs. So Abdul Malik bin Marwan said to him, woe unto you, you give me a little relief at the end, that the Arabs are not going to completely lose their positions, that there will still be some Arabs in that position. So that was the era of the freed slaves. So within one generation, the freed slaves who were captives of war, like in Hassan al-Basri, for instance, and so on, they became the masters in the Muslim world. So the issue here was not to suppress them, but to give them a chance for an honorable life. Add to this is that the treatment of the slaves in Islam is completely a different story. In fact, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, may Allah be pleased with him, if he got two garments and he gave the better one to his slave, and when he was asked about this, he said, my Khalil, which is my companion, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, said, إخوانكم خوالكم جعلهم لهم الله تحت أيديكم فمن كان أخوه تحت يده فليطعمهم مما يطعم ويلبسهم مما يلبس ولا تكلفوهم ما لا يطيقون فإن كلفتموهم فأعينوهم. Your slaves are your brothers. Those are your brothers. Allah gave you authority over them. So whoever has authority over his brother, let him feed him from his food and clothe him from his own clothes. And do not ask them for what they cannot, do not burden them with more than their capacity. And if you burden them, help them out. So work with them, help them.
SubhanAllah, this is so far again from the shackles
and
of slavery.
It is extremely a different picture. And then Abu Dharr al-Ghifari then wanted to justify why he gave his slave the better garment. He said they were not equal garments, so I could not comply with a command of my companion, the Prophet ﷺ. Therefore, I gave him the better one.
So that way he would have complied in that way.
Yeah, that would complied more than complied.
Inshallah, I think we'll keep coming back to that, inshallah, if we have time, inshallah ta'ala. We have Sister Safiya on the line from Egypt. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Safiya. Welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam. Just firstly, thank you very much for all your wonderful work. It is wonderful to have such a program.
Please keep us in your du'as, inshallah, especially in these last closing hours of Ramadan, inshallah. So please keep us in your du'as.
Inshallah. My question is about Eid prayer. Is it compulsory or obligatory for women to attend the prayer in the mosque? Where the particular part of Egypt that I am in, there are not many mosques which allow for women to pray in the mosque. So there's only actually a few. So my question is it obligatory that we must go and pray in the mosque? Okay,
very good question. Jazakallah khair. I think we can answer that straight away. So is it obligatory for women to attend the Eid Salah, whether it be in a masjid or whether it be in a musalla out in the open, as they do in some countries, which is in fact the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ exhorted the believing women, even if they were menstruating, to at least attend, obviously not pray, but attend the Eid Salah gathering. What is actually the ruling on it? Is it recommended or is it obligatory?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, it's recommended for the women. It is obligatory on the society to accommodate them because the hadith says we were commanded to allow women to go out or to have women go out to the Eid prayer, including the menstruating and the younger version women, premarital. So that command is for the society to accommodate them, to allow them, but it is not directed at the women to go out and pray. So it is recommended for the women, it's emphasized, and it is obligatory on the society to allow them and to accommodate them, provide the means for them.
So that would be called fard kifaya. Is this a duty of sufficiency, meaning that the community, if they suffice and some amount of people attend, then alhamdulillah the obligation is lifted off the community, or is it an individual obligation?
No, it's a communal obligation. Communal obligation. It's upon the community to accommodate them, meaning to provide them the means that will enable them to go out and pray. If there is no place at the masjid for them, they can't come out and pray. So a place should be provided, the means to get there should be provided by the community, so the community should be accommodating, and it's their responsibility to create that environment that will allow the women to go out without hardship and without any reluctance to the prayer.
Jazakallah khairan, Shaykh, for that answer. We have Brother Omar on the line from Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Omar.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Yes, where was Nigeria yesterday? We had no calls from Nigeria. Was it a holiday yesterday or something? Maybe after the night of the 27th, people wanted to take it a bit easy.
Not really, but actually I wasn't even at home at that time, so I missed out on yesterday's show.
Okay, barakallahu feekum, inshallah. So yes, please, brother, you're live on Ask Huda. Please ask your question.
Okay, my question is the zikr which we're meant to do a night before the Eid till the time the Imam leads the prayer.
Yes.
Some people are of the opinion that you're supposed to continue this after every third prayer for the next 3 days. I want a clarification on that.
So you don't mean the dhikr, you mean the takbirat. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, wa lillahi alhamd. Yeah. So for Eid al-Fitr, what is the ruling? When should it start? When should it end? And if there is any difference, what about on Eid al-Adha? So inshallah, I think we could, inshallah, if we can take that question right now. I mean, so Shaykh, what is the sunnah of Eid takbirat? When should they be done, and when does it end?
For Eid al-Fitr, it's until the Salah, until the Imam starts his khutbah. For Eid al-Adha, it is until the Asr of the third day of Tashriq, which is the 13th of the Hajj.
Right, and it's done from Maghrib onwards when Eid is announced?
Yes.
MashaAllah, and that's again done, is it done after the Salah, or is it done at any time? Or?
It can actually be done at any time, at any place, even in the market, any place, and any time.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykh. We had a question from a sister in United Arab Emirates regarding women removing facial hair. And again, one thing that is very pertinent is removing hairs from the eyebrows. So what is the limit of women removing facial hair? Are there any no-go areas, and what are its limits, if at all?
Well, within the spectrum of normal, women should not remove facial hair. So if they have facial hair that is within the spectrum of normal, then you do not change the creation of Allah. And people have to really understand the wisdom behind this. This is to say that all of Allah's creation is beautiful, and do not, be obsessive about how you look. You look good, you look beautiful. Kullu khalqillahi hasan, the Prophet ﷺ said, all of Allah's creation is beautiful. So if all of Allah's creation is beautiful, then you do not need to change His creation. But if there is something that is out of the spectrum of normal, then you certainly could go ahead and treat it, because that's treatment in this case. It is not supposed for women to have beard or mustache, and if they do, then they can go ahead and pluck it or remove it by laser or remove it by any means they can afford, because that is not part of the normal creation. And certainly if someone has like an ear that is considerably abnormal, that is obviously abnormal, and he wants them to bring it, to treat it, to surgically improve it, that is absolutely fine, because that is obviously abnormal. It is when your nose is within the normal human spectrum, a little bigger, a little smaller, and you want to, make it look bigger or smaller. That is not permissible, because it is within human variation.
Sure.
But if it goes into the, disease area, then
or
it should
considered
be
deformity,
deformity,
then yes, then this can be, then you can get some plastic surgery to get that on.
Absolutely, and there will be an element of subjectivity. But if some of the reasonable physicians say yes, this is abnormal, then you can go ahead.
Yes, brother, Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, for that reply. We have brother Yasin on the line from the United States of America. Assalamu alaikum, brother Yasin.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Yes, brother, welcome to the show. Please, what is your question?
First, I want to give salams to the Sheikh Yasin from Minnesota. I'm here in Egypt right now.
Oh, mashallah. So from the same state as the Sheikh, mashallah, in the United States, mashallah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
One of your students.
Oh, mashallah. Okay, this is good. So don't give your Sheikh a hard time now on live TV. That would be bad adab, I think. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. The question I had is, are the Muslims from America that are here in Egypt, are they eligible for zakat?
Okay, good question, interesting question, definitely a rare question. So yes, Sheikh, our brothers who are over here in Egypt and they are of a certain poverty level, unfortunately, are they eligible for the zakat within this community here?
Yeah, I think that's doubly eligible, because they're wayfarer and needy. So if they will be eligible because they're needy, and they will be eligible because they are wayfarers.
Yes, okay.
So yes, they are certainly eligible.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, and Jazakallah khairan, brother Yasin, for your question. Sister Sophia from Nigeria, she asked a question regarding, can a man force his wife to wear the niqab? So maybe she follows the opinion that it's maybe recommended, or maybe even he does, but in this instance he decides he wants to actually make it obligatory on his wife. Can he actually do that?
No, in fact, a man cannot force his wife to follow his madhab, nor a parent can force his son to follow his madhab. That's one of the things that where obedience is not necessarily binding. Because if a parent decided, in fact Ibn Abdin al-Hashiyah clearly spells this out, even though he's madhabi, but he says that a parent who orders his son to follow a particular madhab may not be necessarily, it may not be mandatory to obey him. Certainly the son can go ahead and obey him, but it is not necessarily mandatory to obey him, because there is no obvious wisdom behind switching his son from one madhab to another one. The husband can order his wife, can command his wife, and it is upon him, it's incumbent upon him, not only his right but his duty, to order his wife to do good, because he is the head of the household. The wife also, if she sees deviation on the part of the husband, it is upon her to order him. Yes, maybe she's not the head of the household, so the level of emphasis here may vary to some extent, but she is also a Muslim like he is, and every Muslim is meant to give nasiha to his brother or his sister.
Sure.
So we correct each other, but if it is a matter of ijtihad and a matter of scholarly debate and controversy, then we do not order one another, even if we are a husband and wife or a parent and child, with regard to those issues.
Okay, and so even if this is an issue of his, because this comes into his honor, his wife is his honor, and he may, and likewise, the husband is the wife's honor as well. So even in this case, if he wants something to be, again, not forced from not believing that she'll be sinful for it, but on the basis that, not that the face is there for awrah, but therefore that he would like his wife because he believes that she is beautiful, and he would not like people to maybe look at her. So will this not override that factor that you just mentioned?
Well, I have to go back and say to say that this is controversial, like many other issues that are controversial, and many would argue that if he can order her to do something that is mubah, then he is also liable to order her to do something that is preferable.
Yes.
But that is also not absolutely true all the way, because he can order her to pray 12 rak'ahs a day, or he can order her to pray 40 rak'ahs a day, and it's preferable to pray 40 rak'ahs a day. Then he became, a second God here.
Yes, but he's legislating in an area that is...
Yeah. So it is not an absolutist argument that if he can order her to do something mubah, then he may order her to do something that is preferable. If he has a particular interest and benefit in that which he asks of her, then he may order her, whether it's mubah or preferable, to do it if he has an obvious benefit from it.
Okay.
In the case of the honor business, I would just caution that, this should be done for Allah. It should not be done to show off in front of your friends and so on, that your wife is muntaqibah, so you have like a higher level of piety or this or that.
Yes, so Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh, for that reply. We have Sister Sharifa on the line from the United Arab Emirates. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Sharifa. Welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. This is Sharifa from Dubai. Ramadan Kareem to all of you, and Sheikh also, I'd like to say Ramadan Kareem to you too.
Oh, Jazakumullah khairan, Sister.
Yes, I have a question about marriage. My question is for a man who has already been married for the first time and is planning to marry a second wife. Can he marry her in secret without acknowledging his first wife? Not asking for permission, just for acknowledging her.
Right.
And if so, is there any hadith authentic to prove this, that it is authentic for us to follow? And if not, can you also prove this? And if a woman can go to the court when she finds out and ask for a divorce, because during this process, obviously, the man has been lying to his wife by asking these when she's asking him a question where he's going, he would reply by saying he's outside somewhere, whereas he's going to his second wife. So this would be considered as lying, and isn't this haram in Islam?
Okay, we got that question. So basically, in summary, the question is, a man marries a second wife without consulting or even informing his first wife. So one, does he have to ask his first wife's permission? Secondly, can she therefore initiate divorce proceedings because her husband did not inform her of the second wife if she came to find this out? And also, in the case where the man has been lying to his first wife about a second wife, then again, I think there's a number of questions in there. But generally, what do we have to say about this?
Well, alhamdulillah, if the man marries the second wife in secret, in other words, there are no witnesses, then this is not a valid marriage. But if it is in secret, meaning that without the knowledge of the first wife, then the marriage is certainly valid if it fulfills the pillars and the conditions of the marriage. So if the guardian is in approval, the bride, the groom, there are two witnesses, and the sigha or the formalities, a certain statement of marriage is performed or carried out, then you have fulfilled the pillars and the conditions, and your marriage is valid. Now, is this good manners? Is this good mu'ashara, or treatment or of the former wife? It is not. It is not, and it certainly is not helpful to start one family at the expense of ruining the first, or start a second at the expense of ruining the first. Yet, from a legal perspective, that marriage is a valid marriage. From a legal perspective, is the wife entitled to divorce automatically, the first one? No, she's not entitled to divorce, because that's not one of the causes of that will entitle her to divorce. Can she ask for khula?
Which is the wife-initiated divorce, which is different to talaq, which is from the man's side, yes.
Yeah, it's separation instigated by the wife. so if she can ask for a separation that's instigated from her end, she may do this if, if she finds it hard to live with this man and to be a dutiful wife anymore. She finds resentment, hatred inside her. It's not possible for her to carry out or to carry on this marriage.
And also lack of trust, and that's the basis of any marriage, isn't it?
So if she finds that in her heart, and if she's truthful about it, then she may go ahead and ask for a separation, if that is what she wants to do.
Sure.
The last thing that she mentioned was
the issue of if there was a case of lying, or he deceived his first wife and was therefore implying he's not married or something like this. So there was some dishonesty there. So not just covering up, he even went further and maybe had embellished the truth.
Well, if he was lying, then certainly that's sinful. But if he uses ma'arid or equivocation, that's a different story. But again, it's got to be disliked, in such a condition, because no one can live his life in such a way that's quite fake and dishonest.
Yes, and as we know, there's plenty of cases where this has led to disastrous results. It's not a clever thing to do. It's not very in line with the Islamic spirit of things, and ultimately leads to destruction, unfortunately. With that, it's time to go for a short break. Please don't go away. Stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly, inshaAllah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Each day we'll take one step closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to the Quran, to our way of life. Each day we will explore the acts of worship that we do, and we will find out how they relate to our hearts, how they impact our souls, how they help us understand the reality of existence. All of this and much more in our show, One Step Closer. All of you are invited to join us. Share your stories, share your aspirations, share your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll be happy to have you on board. Join us in One Step Closer.
The story of Adam alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam the names of everything. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam approached that fire and he was surprised. The arrow killed the boy. If you want to be saved in this world, get on the ark of Islam.
نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين.
Our schools, what is missing? Join Dr. Mamdoor Muhammad in Our Schools, What is Missing? He will be discussing the most common mistakes made in our educational systems.
What type of teaching they teach him, what they say to him, what books they select for him to read, what things that he listens to, what games that he begins to play with.
How to perfect the work in the school.
Our goal is to improve our school.
And we'll see practical solutions from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger.
Most of the criteria for success for us had been designed for us by our Creator.
Our Schools, What is Missing? In Ramadan on Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ask Huda, your show for asking your questions about Islam. Just to remind you about the numbers, they are 00202 38555 248 and 249, and you can also email us at ask@huda.tv. We will take your questions offline and process them accordingly. We'll go straight into a call. We have Sister Atiyah on the line from Saudi Arabia. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, sister. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Please go
Yeah,
forth with your question.
So much. Okay, you have a very good show here. I like it.
Barakallahu feek.
Your good work going. And what I
Jazakallahu
want to
khairan.
ask is, my mother is a widow, and she takes care of herself from her father's pension. Okay, and she has some gold. Last year, I gifted her a few gold bangles. Now the amount of gold she has is around 115 grams of gold. Okay, so I want to know, what do we do about the zakah? She wouldn't be able to pay from the sustenance she has, and do I have to pay it for her, or how do we do about her zakah?
Okay, so just to clarify, so your mother, who's a widow, she has some jewelry, about 115 grams worth of jewelry, and she cannot afford to pay the zakat on that. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't know whether she has to pay. She has my father's pension, and does she have to squeeze in other things and pay for her zakah, or is she not eligible for it, or do I pay it for her because she doesn't have any other children except me?
Right.
So
Okay.
how do we do this?
Okay, so a number of questions. So basically, the sister's mother has some gold. She also gets a pension from the sister's father, and presumably from some kind of policy that he may have had. What should she do about that? I mean, this sounds that she's eligible for zakat and she should pay it herself, or should her daughter pay it, given that she's the only child?
Well, if the gold that she has was actually for use, she did not have any intention of investment, and it was for use, then it's not zakatable. She does not need to pay zakat if it was for use and there is no intention of investment. If it was for investment, then she will need to sell part of it and give the zakat from the part that she sells. It's actually 2.5%, so she will need to be given 2.5% of the 114 grams. But certainly, zakat nisab is calculated on the basis of the 24 karat gold. So she will need to figure out how much 24 karat gold she has, and make the calculations on that basis.
Accordingly. And obviously, any money that she gets from a pension will need to be calculated as zakatul mal anyway.
Yes,
the standard rate.
Gold and silver, as well as cash, they're all combined.
Okay, great. Jazakumullah khairan. We have Brother Ibrahim on the line from Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Brother Ibrahim? Brother Ibrahim, you're sounding a bit faint in the background. I don't know if he's still there. Okay. 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 Yes, he's been cut off, unfortunately. We have Brother Ziyad from Nigeria who could take his place. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ziyad.
Alaikum salam. I have a question on Zakat al-Fitr.
Yes, go ahead, brother.
I want to give out rice for Zakat al-Fitr. So I want to know the proper measurement or the proper kg I should give out.
Okay, so you're going
to measure it.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. Yes, so the brother wants to give rice for zakat. How much does he have to weigh? What is the weight measurement that he has to give?
Per kilogram, I'm not quite sure of the exact weight in rice. It's 1 sa, which will be about 2.1.2.3 kilograms based on the density of the food that you're giving.
Yes.
So, whether you're giving dates or rice or this or that, because it's measured by volume, not by weight. In the Sunnah, it is, 1 sa is 4 mud, and 1 mud is 2 hands full like this.
Yes.
And if this multiplied by 4 will be 1 sa, so this multiplied by 4 will be about 2.1 to 2.04 4 to 2.3, all the way up to 2.3, depending on what it is that you're giving, whether it's date or rice or wheat or barley or what.
So perhaps it might even be easier to be on the safe side to actually do it with the hands, because something like rice, that's easy to do, right?
Yeah,
with dates a bit sticky.
Maybe if you want to be on the safe side, 2.3 for anyone would cover you.
Okay, and so that's the best, that's kind of like the safest option, the most conservative option.
Yeah, and if you want to give a little bit more, like 2.5 kilograms, that would be great.
Sure, Jazakumullah khair. Sister Safiya from Nigeria had a question regarding, if a man marries a second wife, can he leave his second wife during their allotted time together to see how the first one is? What are the rules regarding that?
If a man is married to a second wife, can he leave? Well, the allotted time is actually for nights, it's not for days. So it is, the nights are divided, the days are not divided. So he can go and check on his wives, on all of his wives during the day, but sure. He will spend, he will allot the nights and designate them. And that is where he should not, we should sort of, but certainly there are emergencies and there are, needs that are legitimate needs, like let's say one of his wives is sick, then he would ask permission and make up the second wife later, but he would have to attend to the one that is sick, the one that is coming back from travel maybe, like he will have to pick her up, or things of that nature happen, and they need to be flexible. But he will need to make up the wife whose night was taken away.
Sure. And she also asked a question that if a person sells a product, is there any limit to how much profit that a person can make on a product?
Ghabn is forbidden in Islam, but ghabn, or inequity or injustice, it is very hard to determine what is the percentage that would be called injustice. But if he charges a lot more than his counterparts, than his competitors in the market, a lot more, significantly a lot more, then that is obviously injustice to the buyer. If he abuses or exploits the ignorance of the buyer, that's also un-Islamic. But there is no set percentage. Some of the scholars try to come up with 30% or 1/3, but there is no proof on setting a percentage because it varies from a product to another product.
Absolutely,
sometimes, yes. if your profit margin is 30%, you can't really make it in certain markets. So it varies, but you have to look at the market and look at what the market value is, and don't be too far from the market value.
Sure. Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh. You want to do, again, we're almost covering a theme because of the issue of slavery, such a wide topic, but you wanted to, inshallah, mention some further things about that.
Yeah, maybe we go back because we didn't finish answering the question of the sister. As far as slavery, before we get into the concubines, one of the main differences between slavery, as some people knew it in the modern era in the last couple of hundred years, and the slavery that was allowed or permitted in Islam, with all of those measures taken to grant freedom to the slaves willing to obtain it. One of the main differences is that slavery was completely colorblind. The slavery that was allowed by Islam was completely colorblind. In fact, the most popular freed slaves in our history as Muslims are 4. That's Salman the Persian, Suhaib the Roman, Bilal the Abyssinian, and Zayd ibn Haritha the Arab. So Zayd was a slave and he was freed by the Prophet ﷺ. He was Arab. Salman was Persian. Suhaib was Roman, even though some people talk about the lineage of Suhaib, but ultimately he is he's Roman. That's where he grew up. He looked Roman. He grew up in as Roman.
In effect, European.
So he looked Roman or European. He grew up there and so on. So Suhaib the Roman, Zayd the Arab, Salman the Persian, and Bilal the Abyssinian, those are the most celebrated freed slaves in our history as Muslims, and they come from all different corners of the world and different ethnic backgrounds. So slavery that was permitted in Islam initially was completely colorblind. The issue of the concubines and whether a man can actually have intimacy with his concubines, and this has been, in all of the divine books before Islam. That is true. If you look at how many concubines Sulaiman alayhi salam had in the Bible, yes, and Dawood alayhi salam had, in fact, Hagar, our mother, the bondwoman of Ibrahim.
And she was Egyptian
actually,
as well.
She was Egyptian, and she was not a wife, but she was a bondwoman or a slave girl, a concubine. And she gave birth to Ismail, who ultimately gave birth to the best of Allah's creations, the Prophet ﷺ. So the issue here is that this is not foreign, this is not new, it's not something that Islam came up with. This has been always there since the beginning of revelation, and it is the practice of the prophets before Islam. But in this way, we have to also add that the concubine that is married, he can't touch her. Once he marries her off, and he's encouraged to do this, he cannot touch her. And it is also important for us to say that this is allowable, but what is the most favorable thing, the most preferable thing? In fact, the Prophet ﷺ told us the most favorable thing. He said 3 people will be given the reward twice. One of those 3 people is a man who had a concubine, فَأَدَّبَهَا فَعَلَّمَهَا فَأَحْسَنَ تَعْلِيمَهَا وَأَدَّبَهَا فَأَحْسَنَ تَأْدِيبَهَا. So he taught her and he instructed her in manners very well, and he freed her and then he married her. So he freed her and then he married her. So so not only that he taught her and instructed her in manners and freed her, but he also married her. So that man will be given his reward twice. So that is the favorable thing that Islam encourages us to do. The Prophet ﷺ could have kept Safiya as a concubine, for instance, but he freed her and he married her.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that is the best arrangement.
Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykh. Very, very comprehensive reply to a very difficult and complicated question, so barakallahu feekum for that. It's come to the time for the end of the show. It's also come to the end of the show for Ramadan, and also the end for myself as a presenter here. Alhamdulillah, I've enjoyed it. I'd like you all to, it's been an absolute privilege for me to have done this show, and I ask you all to make dua for me, and inshallah I'll make dua for you. We just end with, I believe this is Dr. Hatem's also last show as well, so we came as contractors covering for this show, which is one of the flagship shows of Huda TV. This is your Dr. Muhammad Salah. Inshallah we'll be back in the new season, which is going to come after Eid time, inshallah ta'ala. Just to remind you, you can email the show at ask@huda.tv. You can also support this channel as well as the show by emailing at support@huda.tv. And also please do not forget to visit the website at www.huda.tv. All that ends for me to say is that inshallah hope you have a blessed Eid, and that Allah accepts all our deeds and your deeds during this blessed month of Ramadan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Who knows, we may meet again soon.
If my love is attached to thee, then from sins I will be free. Each time my heart will beat, your name will resound with heat. Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test.